My name is Rebecca Eigen. I am an astrologer in Houston, Texas. I specialize in the seventh house and relationships. And today I want to talk about how there comes a time in every relationship when the honeymoon is over and the projections collapse and we are no longer seeing our ideal or our fantasy in the other person because we're starting to get to know them. And the unconscious will actually facilitate this to happen by producing quarrels between us. Eventually, it's our own unconscious that needs this to happen so that we don't. And I'm saying this so that you don't feel like a victim because this is something that is a second phase of the relationship. I mean, it's inevitable. No relationship is going to remain ideal forever. We have to see who the other person is. And of course, when we first meet somebody and we idealize them, we are projecting something of ourselves onto them. It's interesting to hear someone say, "You're not who I thought you were." Well, that means you're no longer my projections or my fantasy or my projected fantasy of what I saw in the beginning, which was only what we wanted to see. And it was something that was more ruled by our own compulsions. I mean, there's an element of compulsiveness when we are projecting a quality of ourselves onto the other person. And we have to differentiate from them. We actually have to separate in order to see who they really are. And we have to begin being more of our authentic selves, because when we're at the beginning, we're always putting our best foot forward. Everybody wants to be highly thought of by the person that they're fascinated with or they're attracted to. And starting a relationship with anyone new starts that way. And this is, this isn't just relationships with significant others or marriage partners. This is with everybody. And so when the projections are collapsing, that includes our friends, that includes our neighbors, it includes anybody we idealize or put up on a pedestal at the beginning of getting to know them. And we have to withdraw our projections. It's important. And it's important to be vulnerable and tell the other person that we've done so, that we are starting to see, well, this that I thought about you is probably more about me, or this that I saw about you, I'm not seeing that anymore, and start up a dialogue. And one of the most successful things about being in a long-term relationship is that both people are starting to get to know each other and trust. And it's important that when we're having a discussion or we're having a disagreement, that we learn to take turns giving in. Yes, each person has to be willing to give in sometimes and not always be right, because nobody is always right. We have to listen to the other person. It has a lot to do with how we communicate and how we listen. And probably listening is the most important aspect of communication. And I know y'all have heard this before, but we have two ears and only one mouth. So we need to listen twice as much as we speak when we're trying to get something resolved. I'll never forget an incident with my business partner, Trish. We'd been together for at least 6 to 8 months working together. We'd actually worked together at Exxon Chemical when she was my client for a number of years. But when she came to join me and became my business partner, we were starting to see things about each other we'd never seen before. And she did something that I didn't like, and I said so. And I thought she was being passive aggressive. And she left, she's like, "Everything is about you. Why do you have to take everything that way?" And blah, she was just all in a huff, and she left. And she calmly insisted that it was all about me, that I was the, not seeing her side or whatever. When I'd gotten angry, because I actually got angry, and I accused her of doing something to get even with me. Well, that night, she called me at a synchronistic moment. I was writing in my journal, and I was writing to myself, "She's angry but she's not willing to tell me what she's angry about. I saw her as being an angry person. I mean, I was seeing a lot of anger coming from her, and she wouldn't admit it. Well, she called me and she said, "You're right. I am angry with you." And I said, "Good. Now we can do something about it. Now we can see how we can, meet each other halfway or come to the middle on this. And we're not always going to do things your way, and we don't have to always do things my way. We have to take turns." And I think that's so important when you're in a relationship, because if you think about it, we want to be fair to the other person. And the word fair also means equal. Equal means that we're going to share with each other who's going to be in charge, who's going to follow, who's going to lead. It's like you're constantly in a dance. And keeping track of that consciously, like being willing to recognize, well, they gave in and they adjusted and they listened to me, and then telling yourself, okay, it's my turn to listen here and maybe make a concession or move towards the opposite of what they're doing, so that I can understand where they're coming from and put myself in their shoes and try to look at it objectively from their perspective. And I think that that's one of the most key things about communication and resolving issues, is being able to put ourselves in the other person's shoes. What did they feel when that happened? So when she called right at that synchronistic moment, of course, now we could meet each other halfway. Now we could resolve the issue. And little by little by little, we kept doing that to where it got so easy. We both said out loud, I'm willing to take turns. I'm willing to get our emotion out of it, get my ego out of it, and sit down and really listen to what you're saying. And then, maybe come up with a way that both of us can get our needs met. And even if you completely disagree with the person, as long as you're listening to them, then they know you care. That shows you care. We have to learn to listen. And so we have to also make an effort to compromise, as I said, and accommodate. And when I'm giving to you, when I'm giving and giving and giving, and you're not giving back, it's going to get uncomfortable. It will get uncomfortable after a while, and you will resent a person that you're over giving to. So you have to be willing to keep that balance with the other person. And if we're in a relationship with somebody and they ask for something and we ignore them, or we put them down for what they want, they're not going to be willing to share much with us, are they? So we have to not attack each other, and share responsibility and for what's going on in the situation. Every relationship has polarizations. Polarizations mean one person's doing one extreme, the other person starts doing the opposite extreme. And those polarizations, both people have created the polarization by siding too much with one side. And so meeting each other in the middle is we talk about it. We write things down. If you can't talk to your partner, write things down. This is how I felt when you did this. Or, I would say to her, I need you to tell me what you're feeling. How will I change if I don't know? I love you and I want this to work. So I was committed. And that's another huge part of a good communication and dialogue, where you're establishing trust. You're committed to working things out. You're not going on the defensive and start now trying to get even with the person. And that can happen unconsciously. I mean, when somebody has resisted being open and vulnerable, their unconscious is storing that. It's not like it went away. The psyche is a closed system of energy. Just because we repress or suppress what we really felt in the moment doesn't mean it went anywhere. It's still there. And when you feel anger towards a person, there's kind of a different energy in the room. You can actually feel it. It's palpable. And that energy is going to stay there until something gets resolved and both people do something about it. It's really, really amazing to listen to two people fighting and one person is being overly nice and not even like aware the other person is even upset and trying to just smooth things out and not really communicating about the person's issue. I've watched this happen. And Carl Jung says, let me read something from my workbook that I think is really valuable. He says, there is nothing more unbearable than a tepid harmony in personal relationships brought about by withholding emotions. And in the Tavistock lectures, he explains, you see, there is perfect harmony here, but do not make the mistake of thinking that this harmony is paradise. For these people will kick against each other after a while because they are just too harmonious and they're not being real. I mean, he didn't say that part. He said harmonious, period. I added because they're not being real. They're not being real because they have an ideal. They want to be ideal all the time. Well, ideals are fine. It's important to have ideals, but we also have to recognize when our ideals are not working and that we really need to actually learn to talk to the other person, to confront whatever needs to be confronted. And what you'll have at the end of that, if you're willing to cooperate with the other person, is at the end of the day, you'll have trust. And trust is what you really, really want in a relationship that is going to last for a long period of time. A belief that you're trustworthy to me is that you have my best interest at heart. I know you have my best interest, and that when you share with me that you're coming from that place, that you actually care about me. You care about what I'm saying because you're listening. My experience has been that you've heard my needs and that you're going to do your best to show me that you're listening to me and that you've heard me. And so what's important to you is just as important as what's important to me. And that, my friends, is probably the most important thing that has to happen for a long-term relationship, to have healthy and authentic communication all the time where each person is really being vulnerable. There's a really good book that I want to highly recommend, which is by John Sanford. He's a Jungian analyst. All of his books are good. John Sanford wrote the book Evil, the Shadow Side of Reality, which is excellent. And he also wrote The Kingdom Within, which is a book based on Jesus Christ's teachings, and they're from a Jungian perspective. And this book is called Between People, Communicating One to One. And I share a little part of it in my workbook as well, and I want to read that to you. Let's see. Harry, this is talking about a couple who are upset with each other. Harry's upset because his wife, Susan, is drinking again. One evening he says sarcastically, I guess this is the way it's going to be now, one drunken evening after another. Of course, his wife erupts angrily. Later, after thinking about it, he brings the subject up again. This time he begins by saying, Susan, I have to tell you that when you drink, I feel it destroys our relationship, and that's why I wish you would stop. So now Susan is angry again because she's a little defensive about her drinking because she knows that she has to stop drinking, but it doesn't last that long this time. She stops drinking, for now she knows how her husband feels and that what he values is their relationship, where before she felt he was just being hostile and critical towards her. So he also describes communication as a game of catch, where one person throws the ball and the other person catches it and throws it back. To use our image of communication as a game of catch, when one person throws the ball, it is an attempt to begin to work things through an agenda. with the other person. If the other person will not catch the ball and toss it back, the whole process is aborted. And if the ball is not thrown back and forth long enough, all the items in the agenda are not discussed. So when we're withdrawing projections, it's important to be vulnerable and tell the other person that we've done so and own the part of us that got in that polarization. Because in that polarization, I promise you, there's a part of yourself that you're lacking, that you're missing, that you're needing to bring forward. And this particular relationship is the one to help you do it, or they wouldn't be in your life. And I think I'm going to repeat this every single time I speak. And I really believe this is extremely important. As above, so below. As within, so without. You wouldn't even be in a relationship with that person if it wasn't a part of you that you need, that you are, that you need to develop, that you're lacking or missing. So, when you find that person, when you find a business partner, when you find a relationship, a friendship, a marriage partnership, or even a mother-daughter relationship, a mother and stepdaughter relationship, when you have that kind, or a mother and mother-in-law and daughter-in-law, a mother-in-law and a daughter who are having to connect because they have to share their relationship with another person, and they're needing to learn to cooperate and communicate with each other. This stuff is really important, and it's not easy. I don't think it's easy. Some people can say that doing this kind of work is easy, but I don't think so, because if you'll notice, there's always something going on in a relationship that is bringing forth something where you felt uncomfortable and you need to deal with it. And so it behooves us to know that what's inside is outside. And to trust the universe, that the universe has brought the perfect person to irritate us into our own wholeness. In John Sanford's book, Between People, Communicating One-to-One, he lists 4 different ways that we communicate that do not work. Or they don't work very well. So I want to list them here. 1, when a person talks at you. They will communicate by talking and talking and talking and not ever stopping to even breathe. It's a monologue instead of a dialogue. And so you feel talked at instead of talked with. 2, they lecture you about what you did or didn't do right. It's a lecture, almost like a parent figure. And this includes criticism and judgmentalism in the communication. Judgmental statements, awkward statements that will burst forth compulsively from the person and not necessarily in a calm or balanced way. That means that person's been holding something back for a while. When it's all of a sudden just gets blurted out, it means that this has been bothering them for a long time. So if you don't take offense and you can step back from that and go, well, there was a lot of energy with that, but I need to look at what they're saying, then you've got an open door to bringing that back to harmony with that person. Another thing he said is if they keep interrupting you when you're trying to say something, like they don't really want to hear what you're saying, so they keep interrupting you no matter what you say. And 4, they make pronouncements which are like, this is it, there's end of discussion, there's nothing more to talk about. So pronouncements can be very off-putting because you feel like, okay, again, you're being talked at. And so you kind of hang in there, but you don't really feel a connection with that person. So, and we're all capable of all of this, okay? I'm not talking about they, I'm talking about us. We are all capable of everything. We've all made mistakes in our communication with others. We've all made mistakes in our relationships, but we want to learn from those mistakes. And that's why Jung said the opposite of love is power. Our ego is saying, I'm going to make you be what I need you to be. That's power. That has nothing to do with love. We want to love each other for who we are, who they are, not who we want them to be. And that's the dark side of erotic love or eros. It's possessiveness, it's jealousy, it's consuming love. Eros is the desire of a subject for an object. So we objectify the other person without even knowing we're doing it. When we fall in love with somebody, we don't even know we're actually making them into an object because we really haven't seen them yet. We haven't seen who they actually are. And if we're shaming, blaming, being emotionally abusive, or lying to their face and they catch you, then that's not really a person you want to be in a relationship with. That is not a friend. You can tell by the way they say it, whether they love you and care for you. And communication is everything. I can't repeat that enough. And our astrology will give us details. Astrology can really help out with this. Because if we look at our astrology and our partner's astrology, we will see exactly the areas where our partners and ourselves are going to have trouble. This is the pure gold. It's pure gold, this information. Astrology can really help you to look at yourself. And having an astrological report done for a person. I sell the psychological horoscope analysis reports on my website, and they are invaluable. I talked about that at the beginning of doing this, and periodically I will talk about it because they are extremely valuable. And having a consultation. When I do a consultation for a couple, I usually do one person first and then the other person, and then I put them together because it's very vulnerable to have somebody look at your birth chart and talk to you about yourself. All of yourself. There's a lot you can see in a birth chart. It's very comprehensive of our character. And I write extensive notes so that I can put them together a third time and then discuss with them. And that's just the initial 3 parts of that kind of work. There's more to do. Naturally, there's more to do after that. You can't just have these 3 consultations and think this is going to fix your relationship. No, it's ongoing work. And that's why I offer 7 different types of consultations for anyone who wants to really go into it, who wants to go into themselves in a very deep way and their partners. My partner Trish told me the first time I did a consultation for her, she said, it feels like you're being unmasked. It does. It feels like you're being unmasked for somebody to know that much about you from a piece of paper, that's a circle with a bunch of squigglies on it. And when you first see something like that, you go, wow, how could you get all of that from that? But that's what astrology can do. And that's why I love doing it. And whatever we're doing is pretty ingrained, and it'll repeat over and over with whoever comes into our life, because if we want to grow, then we need to do some of the opposite of what they're doing, or learn to confront in the moment or through paper. If we can't do it right in the moment, sometimes people just throw you back because they attack you, or they say something and it feels like a jab, and you just go, what? Well, that's another thing Zoom is doing. When I've done a consultation recently, that's happened where I have been talking to somebody and Zoom, it's over. It's like, boom, it's gone. But I know it's not going to completely disconnect, that it will come back. So I wait, and usually like 4 or 5 seconds or 10 seconds, it will come back. So, but anyway, so what I was talking about was the biggest problem that we all have is accepting ourselves and accepting the other person. And again, chances are the unconscious has brought that person for you. And the effect that people have on us is very purposeful. The effect they have on us, it's teleological. It's hard to say that. Teleology of life is, it's leading somewhere. It wants something from us. And so if we can look at our lives in this way, if we can say to ourselves, what does this want from me? What issues need to be discussed? And if we don't communicate our real feelings, we will resent the person, they will resent us, and it'll escalate, and eventually the relationship will completely deteriorate. So I believe that the biggest problem, the shadow side of relating, is incomplete communication, where feelings are not expressed, where I'm angry and I haven't expressed my anger. And again, we all do this. This isn't like you are like that. No, we all do this. And so I believe that we have to have that willingness to and to strive to be as honest as possible, even if it causes short-term anxiety, because it does. It creates anxiety and uncomfortable feelings when we have to confront something. But if we don't, we will not get to where there's peace and harmony. But the peace and harmony is real after we've gone through these short-term issues. And so authenticity has an intention. The intention is, I want to be closer to you. I want to know what you feel. I can be trusted to keep my word, and I can ask for your help if I need it and not feel I'm putting you out. I want you to ask me. And in a lot of ways, we're going to stretch. We're going to stretch and be more selfless at times. And sometimes we are going to be selfish. We need both for balance. And even if you disagree in the moment, it's still, if you're listening, they know you care. In the book, Mysterium Connectionis, which is one of the very last books that Jung wrote and it was on alchemy. It's this thick, and it's a very difficult reading, but it is excellent. And he says that an experience of the self, which is our higher self, our Christ self, our imago Dei, our God within, the experience of the self is always a defeat for the ego. So our ego has to be removed in order to have this kind of dialogue, this kind of really recognizing when our own ego is getting in the way. We have to open ourselves to the flow of life as it unfolds, and to recognize that this came to me for a reason. And even if it's painful, we will move towards that inner marriage, which is the balance of masculine and feminine, which is another subject that I will address at another time. And again, looking at your astrological data with your partner will give you a tool to work with. So when each person can learn about the other person's energy, then you'll understand them so much more, who they are, and what's important to them and why it's important to them. We can love them not for what they can give us, but for who they are. And that kind of love is real. So as long as we're seeking to be completed by another person, then we're looking for the perfect parent mirror image of ourselves. Yes, our parents. That's often what we are seeking because we have an incompleted relationship with our parents. So doing shadow work with our partners, it's very, very hard to do it. You do have to retract some of your ego and your selfishness, because you have to become willing to put yourself in the other person's shoes from time to time and do this dance, and ask them, what are your needs? What can I do for you? What would help you? How would you feel more connected with me if I did something that you need? And from time to time, because things change, we need to ask again. We can't just ask one time. And if that person asks, we need to make an effort to remember that. I remember distinctly asking for my sexual needs to be met in a relationship, and that my partner at the time heard that one time and did what I asked and then never did it again. And every single time I just kept disconnecting. But I was really young then, and I didn't know how to communicate what my sexual preferences were, but I tried. And so it's very important if somebody asks you for something, and not just sexual, but anything, that you're listening, and that you will keep doing it, that you didn't hear it just that one time. So doing shadow work, as hard as it is, I believe that is the only way that we are actually going to become healthy on this planet. And everything begins with us. Everything starts with us looking at ourselves and then recognizing the patterns, the mirrors, the situations that are repeating, that are coming to us. And I did a talk on dreams earlier. I think it's number 4. And dreams are extremely important. So keeping your dream journal, because your dreams are going to give you information about parts of you don't know about. You don't. No one knows everything about themselves. I don't care how many degrees you have. I don't care how many books you've read. Or as long as you're on the planet, you're still learning about yourself in the moment. And the only way to do that is through relationship. Paper, if we can't do it right in the moment, sometimes people just throw you back because they attack you, or they say something and feels like a jab, and you just go, what? Well, that's another thing Zoom is doing. When I've done a consultation recently, that's happened, where I have been talking to somebody and Zoom, it's over. It's like, boom, it's gone. But I know it's not going to completely disconnect, that it will come back. So I wait, and usually 4 or 5 seconds or 10 seconds, it will come back. So, but anyway, so what I was talking about was the biggest problem that we all have is accepting ourselves and accepting the other person. And again, chances are the unconscious has brought that person for you. And the effect that people have on us is very purposeful. The effect they have on us, it's teleological. It's hard to say that. Teleology of life is, it's leading somewhere. It wants something from us. And so if we can look at our lives in this way, if we can say to ourselves, what does this want from me? What issues need to be discussed? And if we don't communicate our real feelings, we will resent the person. They will resent us, and it'll escalate, and eventually the relationship will completely deteriorate. So I believe that the biggest problem, the shadow side of relating, is incomplete communication, where feelings are not expressed, where I'm angry and I haven't expressed my anger. And again, we all do this. This isn't like you are like that. No, we all do this. And so I believe that we have to have that willingness to strive to be as honest as possible, even if it causes short-term anxiety, because it does. It creates anxiety and uncomfortable feelings when we have to confront something. But if we don't, we will not get to where there's peace and harmony. But the peace and harmony is real after we've gone through these short-term issues. And so authenticity has an intention. The intention is, I want to be closer to you. I want to know what you feel. I can be trusted to keep my word, and I can ask for your help if I need it, and not feel I'm putting you out. I want you to ask me. And in a lot of ways, we're going to stretch. We're going to stretch and be more selfless at times. And sometimes we are going to be selfish. We need both for balance. And even if you disagree in the moment, it's still, if you're listening, they know you care. In the book, Mysterium Connectionis, which is one of the very last books that Jung wrote and it was on alchemy. It's this thick, and it's a very difficult reading, but it is excellent. And he says that an experience of the self, which is our higher self, our Christ self, our imago Dei, our God within, the experience of the self is always a defeat for the ego. So our ego has to be removed in order to have this kind of dialogue, this kind of really recognizing when our own ego is getting in the way. We have to open ourselves to the flow of life as it unfolds and to recognize that this came to me for a reason. And even if it's painful, we will move towards that inner marriage, which is the balance of masculine and feminine, which is another subject that I will address at another time. And again, looking at your astrological data with your partner will give you a tool to work with. So when each person can learn about the other person's energy, then you'll understand them so much more, who they are, and what's important to them and why it's important to them. We can love them not for what they can give us, but for who they are. And that kind of love is real. So as long as we're seeking to be completed by another person, then we're looking for the perfect parent mirror image of ourselves. Yes, our parents. That's often what we are seeking because we have an incompleted relationship with our parents. So doing shadow work with our partners, it's very, very hard to do it. You do have to retract some of your ego and your selfishness because you have to become willing to put yourself in the other person's shoes from time to time and do this dance, and ask them, what are your needs? What can I do for you? What would help you? How would you feel more connected with me if I did something that you need? And from time to time, because things change, we need to ask again. We can't just ask one time. And if that person asks, we need to make an effort to remember that. I remember distinctly asking for my sexual needs to be met in a relationship, and that my partner at the time heard that one time and did what I asked and then never did it again. And every single time I just kept disconnecting. But I was really young then, and I didn't know how to communicate what my sexual preferences were, but I tried. And so it's very important if somebody asks you for something, and not just sexual, but anything, that you're listening and that you will keep doing it, that you didn't hear it just that one time. So doing shadow work, as hard as it is, I believe that is the only way that we are actually going to become healthy on this planet. And everything begins with us. Everything starts with us looking at ourselves and then recognizing the patterns, the mirrors, the situations that are repeating, that are coming to us. And I did a talk on dreams earlier. I think it's number 4. And dreams are extremely important. So keeping your dream journal, because your dreams are going to give you information about parts of you don't know about. You don't. No one knows everything about themselves. I don't care how many degrees you have. I don't care how many books you've read. As long as you're on the planet, you're still learning about yourself. And the only way to do that is through relationship. So that's the end of my presentation, and this recording was actually recorded on Facebook sometime back. Again, my name is Rebeca Eigen. I am an astrologer for relationships. Visit my website at shadowdance.com.